Hello, I'm Reverend Dr. Becca Edwards with Texas Impact and the General Board of Church and Society of the United Methodist Church.
And I'm Tracey DePasquale, Director of Lutheran Advocacy Ministry in Pennsylvania, a state public policy office of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.
We're here in Belém, Brazil for COP30, which is the 30th annual gathering of the parties to the UNFCCC, the United Nations Climate Agreement. And we are just the first couple of people that are here on our team. The rest will be arriving tomorrow. And we are part of a larger group of faith-based advocates that come to COP every year to observe the negotiations, to observe the process, to work together with our other faith advocates from around the world, and just to provide a witness that what we are really focused on here at COP is not molecules of carbon dioxide, but the lives of people all around the world that are affected by climate change.
We just were at a strategy session of the Climate Action Network, where leaders who've been working together for, consistently year-round, on their priorities for action out of this COP. There was a major focus on just transitions because 10 years into Paris, we are still seeing the same communities affected by the impacts of climate change over and over again. So there's a renewed emphasis on putting justice at the center of all of these climate goals.
So COP starts tomorrow, Monday. I've heard some people say that this year is going to be focused on adaptation. And so adaptation is the practice of adjusting to climate impacts that are already happening. And there will be a big focus on adaptation, but I think the one thing that's on everybody's mind is going to be climate finance. I think we had hoped to make more progress on that last year in Baku, but the outcome was significantly less money than people were hoping for. And so that conversation has continued. There are a number of different ways that we're going to hear finance come up during the meeting. One of them is through those justice issues that you talked about, because the fact of the matter is that no adaptation or mitigation action can happen without adequate finance. And so it's a real justice issue, especially for medium and low income countries that are struggling to adapt and mitigate and to carry out any climate action just without that adequate finance from developed countries that have benefited historically from the development of fossil fuels.
And there will be also an emphasis on what is happening at the subnational level, since at the national level, so many governments have failed to follow through on their commitments, but great innovations are happening at subnational levels, local and state, provincial level governments around the world. And so we hope to be able to share some best practices and innovations and to even take some home to our states in the United States.
Yeah, and that's one reason it's so important to have we're both part of state agencies that work on state policy, and so some people might be wondering why we're at an international climate negotiation like this. But the fact is that all policy is local, and the state governments and city governments even are the ones that are implementing some of the policies that will be discussed here. And so it's very important to have government actors at all levels as part of these negotiations.
And we're hoping to run into some from our states and to be able to have good conversations with them to encourage them to follow through with these innovations and see how we as people of faith can be supportive of those efforts.
So this will be the first COP in 30 years that the U.S. has not sent an official delegation. I was part of the intercession, which is called SB 62 in Bonn, Germany this summer. That was the first UNFCCC event that we failed to show up at. And certainly it is a different environment than when the U.S. is present. The U.S., historically, our climate commitments vary based on presidential administration, but nonetheless, we've had this really committed and experienced team of negotiators that's been part of this process for decades. And to not have that here will certainly change the tone of the negotiations. It will change who's providing the leadership. It just remains to be seen what that will look like as the negotiations go on. But as Tracey mentioned, we do have lots of subnational government leaders that are planning to be in attendance. And that includes a couple of U.S. governors and others that are committed to climate action. And so we're very excited that their voices will be heard here. And I think to demonstrate to this international body that the U.S. is not of one mind on this issue, that we, even though our presidential administration has chosen another path, that we still are committed to climate action.
It's incredibly disheartening that there is no U.S. presence here, that our own country has given up a tremendous positive leadership role in the world on something that's so existential for human life. It's a matter of life. And even though we do not have an official delegation here, it's important to us as people of faith to show up, to accompany our global partners, to let them know that we are still with them as their siblings, even if our government isn't showing up.
So we'll be here for the next 2 weeks, sending daily dispatches with news and analysis about the negotiations. So keep checking back in.